Hello everyone, my name is Devin, and this is my Week 5 assignment for FTT131. Today's date is June 27th, and in this video, I'm going to examine a pump-action shotgun that is having trouble removing fired shells from the chamber. I'll start by translating the customer's description into proper gunsmithing terminology. Then I'll explain how I would safely inspect and diagnose the shotgun. Finally, I'll review an online forum post and identify 5 pieces of incorrect information from it.
Reserve for 200, sir.
Reserve for it all.
I've got this pump action shotgun I've always trusted, but now it just won't pull the shells out of the chamber anymore. The action feels like it's stuck on the fired casing. The last time I used it was about a year ago when I was goose hunting, and I haven't touched it since back then. Back then, it was working fine, but after sitting all this time, it suddenly is not removing the shells like it used to. Based on the customer's description, the firearm is a pump action or slide action shotgun that is experiencing a failure to extract. The customer reports that after firing, the fore end is difficult or impossible to move rearward because the fired hole remains stuck in the chamber. The shotgun reportedly operated normally during a goose hunt about 1 year ago, but the customer then placed it into storage without using it again. Because the shotgun was exposed to a waterfowl hunting environment before being stored, possible causes include corrosion, fouling, or debris inside the chamber. Other possible causes include a damaged extractor, weak extractor spring, or a damage to the rim of the fired hole. I would explain to the customer that the issue appears to involve the shotgun's extraction system rather than its feeding system. I would also explain that I need to inspect the chamber, extractor, bolt, and any other related components before I can recommend any repairs. Before troubleshooting the shotgun, I would first make sure that it is safe. I would keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, have the safety engaged whenever possible, and I would keep my finger away from the trigger. Because the action may be stuck, I would not try to force the fore end or place anything in front of the muzzle before first making sure that it's clear. I would verify whether ammunition is present in the magazine tube, and depending on the shotgun's design, I would safely remove the shells. Once the magazine tube is empty, I would carefully open the action and inspect the chamber. I would confirm that there is no live rounds or any fired holes that remain stuck inside, and I would inspect the entire bore of the chamber to the muzzle for any obstructions. In addition to checking for ammunition, I would look for serious damage before continuing. This would include a bulged or cracked barrel, any heavy corrosion, and a damaged bolt or locking block, bent action bars, and evidence that the shotgun may have been fired with an obstruction in the bore. The firearm in this complaint uses manually operated pump action systems, so moving the fore end rearward unlocks and moves the bolt, extracts the fired hole, and ejects it. Moving the fore end forward chambers the next shell and locks the action. The customer is mainly describing a failure to extract. The fired hole is not being pulled free from the chamber when the fore end is moved rearward. Depending on what I find, the shotgun could also be experiencing difficult unlocking, but the customer's description strongly points towards an extraction issue. To verify the complaint, I would begin with the shotgun completely unloaded. I would slowly operate the action by hand, and I would pay attention to any binding, unusual resistance, or any rough movements within the firearm. Next, I would use the proper dummy rounds, or snap caps, to test feeding, chambering, extraction, and ejection. I would not use live ammunition during this initial inspection. Dummy rounds are useful because they allow me to observe the cycling process safely. However, they may not produce the exact problem because a fired hole expands against the chamber walls, and a dummy round may extract normally even though an expanded hole will not. The difference is important. If the shotgun cycles dummy ammunition normally, but sticks after firing, chamber roughness or corrosion becomes more likely. If both dummy rounds and fired holes fail to extract, I would place more attention on the extractor, extractor springs, your bolt movement, or your action bars. My leading concern would be rust, fouling, or debris in the chamber. Goose hunting often exposes shotguns to moisture, mud, cold temperatures, and wet ammunition. If the shotgun was stored without being thoroughly cleaned and protected, corrosion could have developed during the year that it sat unused. A rough or corroded chamber can grip the expanded plastic or metal portion of the fired hole. The extractor then has to overcome more resistance than it was previously designed for, which can make the action feel stuck. If a damaged component were involved, the extractor would be one of my main suspects. I would inspect the extractor hook for chips, rounding, or wear, and I would also inspect its spring and movement to make sure that it maintains enough tension and holds the rim of the shell during the extraction. I would inspect the chamber first instead of immediately replacing parts. If the problem is caused by corrosion or heavy fouling, replacing the magazine spring would not correct anything. Assuming chamber corrosion is confirmed, I would tell the customer something like this. The fired hole is expanding normally when the shotgun is fired, but corrosion inside the chamber is gripping onto the hole and preventing it from being pulled out smoothly. The extractor is trying to remove it, but the chamber is creating too much resistance. My repair approach would begin with properly cleaning the chamber and removing the corrosion without unnecessarily changing its dimensions. If the chamber is deeply pitted or the barrel is otherwise unsafe, I would recommend replacing the barrel instead of trying to polish away serious damage. If the extractor or extractor spring is damaged, I would replace the affected part with the correct manufacturer approved components, and after the repair, I would test the shotgun's operation with inert dummy rounds, and I would verify feeding, locking, extraction, and ejection several times. A final live fire functions test would only be performed in a safe and authorized environment. After firing, I would confirm that the hole did extract normally and inspect for any abnormal damage.
The customer's pump-action shotgun is suffering a failure to feed, where shells will not leave the magazine tube and rise onto the carrier. Because the shotgun was last used a year ago for goose hunting, the most likely cause is that the magazine spring has weakened from sitting loaded. So the correct first repair step is to replace the magazine spring and follower. Rust in the chamber would normally cause a failure to fire, not an extraction problem. So chamber inspection is unnecessary. If new magazine parts do not solve the issue, the next step is to install a heavier recoil pad to reduce cycling speed, which should help the extractor pull shells free.
This form post contains 5 inaccurate statements. The first inaccurate statement is, the malfunction described is primarily a failure to feed from the magazine tube. We know that this is inaccurate because the customer said that the shotgun will not pull shells out of the chamber. The customer is describing a failure to extract, not a failure to feed. The second inaccurate statement is, a weak magazine spring from sitting loaded is the most likely cause here. A weak magazine spring can cause feeding problems because it may not push shells rearward with enough force. However, it would not normally cause a fired hole to remain stuck in the chamber. Also, the complaint never states that the shotgun was stored loaded. The third inaccurate statement is that chamber rust would cause failure to fire, not extraction issues. We know that this is incorrect because chamber rust can directly interfere with extraction. After a shell is fired, the hole expands against the chamber walls. So rust, pitting, or fouling can grip the expanded hole and make it difficult for the extractor to overcome. The fourth inaccurate statement is that replacing the magazine spring and follower is the correct first repair step. That would be replacing parts before properly diagnosing the shotgun. And the magazine spring and follower are related to feeding shells from the magazine tube. The first step should be inspecting the chamber, fired holes, the extractor, and your extractor spring. The fifth inaccurate statement is that a heavy recoil pad will help extraction by slowing cycling speed. A recoil pad is designed mainly to reduce the recoil felt by the shooter. So this is a manually operated pump shotgun, so the shooter controls the cycling speed by moving the fore end. So installing a heavier recoil pad would not repair the chamber corrosion or a damaged extractor. The remaining statements are accurate. Waterfowl hunting and storage can contribute to chamber rust. and the customer described an extraction problem rather than a feeding problem. Chamber inspection is necessary. Extractor damage or weak extractor tension could also contribute to the malfunction. Finally, storing the shotgun for a year after possible exposure to moisture is a strong clue that corrosion may be involved. In conclusion, this complaint should be approached as a failure to extract problem. The best process is to make sure that the shotgun is safe, inspect it systematically, and verify the complaint using safe testing methods, and diagnose the actual cause before just replacing parts. This situation also shows why online advice must be evaluated carefully. And advice can sound convincing while still focusing on the wrong firearm system or the wrong stage of the operation. And with that, thank you for watching.